I would like to talk to you of a hypothesis that some progestins could be listed as fourth-generation progestins. In fact, one of our major concerns with combined pills, whether of the second, the third, or the fourth generation, is the frequency of venous thromboembolism. What is really this frequency, and what is the mechanism? In fact, all these pills contain ethinyl estradiol, which is a potent estrogen, and through its first hepatic passage, it increases a lot of protein synthesis, and among them, synthesis of coagulation factors, which may be a dangerous thing for the patient. When there was a surprise when with some progestins, the result in terms of the frequency of the venous thromboembolism was different, was uneven. So, for instance, with ethinyl estradiol, when you combine it with levonorgestrel, which is a potent progestin, but at the same time also a potent androgen, there is, thanks to the androgenic activity, an opposition to the estrogen effect. So the result is that there is less hemostasis factors that are produced. And in fact, with that preparation, which is called a second generation preparation, you have a risk of venous thromboembolism, which is among the smallest. That means that it increases 3 times the risk of venous thromboembolism versus non-use. But by opposition, when you use progestins like desogestrel, like gestodane, like norgestimate, which are much less androgenic, there is not much opposition to the ethinyl estradiol, more coagulation factors are formed, and indeed, when you look to the risk of venous thromboembolism, it is increased not by 3, but by 6 times, which is, of course, a very significant increase. Well, then we have been speaking of levonorgestrel second generation with ethinyl estradiol, desogestrel and gestodane and norgestimate. But there is also drospirenone, who is not an androgenic progestin, but on the contrary, an anti-androgenic progestin. And in that case, well, it doesn't oppose at all the action of ethinyl estradiol, and the level of venous thromboembolism is quite the same as for the third generation, and with drospirenone we call it a fourth generation, and it is the same type, that means 6 times more venous thromboembolism than in the non-user. So we have making this classification, but there are a lot of much used other progestins, dienogest, chlormadinone acetate, cyproterone acetate, and all, you know, are like drospirenone. They are anti-androgens and good progestins. And in that case, they do not oppose ethinyl estradiol itself, and although they are by themselves, when they are alone, have no effect on coagulation, when they are with ethinyl estradiol, they do not oppose, and then there is the same risk as with the third and the fourth generation. And there are now many data showing that they could be considered, when used with ethinyl estradiol, as a fourth generation category also, as well as with drospirenone. But a question then is arising. Is there a possibility of risk minimization in terms of venous thromboembolism if we use an estrogen which would be less strong than ethinyl estradiol? And we have this one because as a natural estradiol, estrogen, I mean, estradiol is much less potent. And when you combine it with a progestin, let's say dienogest, for instance, or normegestrol acetate, indeed, you have a composition which is much less estrogenic, and in that case, you don't increase coagulation factors as much. And now we have the first studies which show that effectively we have less, probably less venous thromboembolism accident than with this, even the second generation, which had the lowest score. So this is really interesting, and there is also for the future the use of a natural estrogen coming from the human fetus, which is called estetrol. And this estetrol, combined with drospirenone, in fact, does almost not alter the level of the coagulation factors. And in that case, it is a real hope for the future and the decrease, the net decrease in the risk of venous thromboembolism.